Chapter 10. The metallic guitar chords whined high in the frigid air of the fourth-floor corridor, filling the gloom with glam rock. What the small Bluetooth speaker lacked in punch, it made up for in clarity as the drums kicked in seconds later. Vivian spun the bat in his hands, gripping the handle like a microphone. "You've got your mother in a whirl," he mouthed to the Starman's voice. "She's not sure if you're a boy or a girl." Token stood on the top bunk, a broomstick in hand, twanging imaginary strings and bobbing his head. "Hey babe, your hair's alright," he answered. "Hey babe, let's stay out tonight." Vivian laughed, picked up one of Token's mud-encrusted army boots and threw it at him. Token ducked, swatted at him with the broom, and tried to continue singing, thrusting his pelvis in and out. Vivian, now playing the part of the angry crowd, booed and threw the other boot, which thumped off the wall, leaving a dark, grimy smudge. "Bastards!" Token cried. "I'll teach you to mock my artistry." And with that, he leapt off the bed, colliding with Vivian halfway down. Vivian slapped his palm into the side of Token's head, chanting, "You suck, you suck." Token scowled, then jammed a ball of folded socks into Vivian's mouth. Retching, Vivian spat the socks out in time to sing the chorus. "Rebel, rebel, you torn your dress," they cried. "Rebel, rebel, your face is a mess." Vivian kicked Token off, making him miss the next line, but he came back strong, wrestling the microphone closer for the finishing duet. "Hot tramp, I love you so." They both sat back laughing while the guitar continued to twang away for the next few verses. Finally, Token reached over to Vivian's phone and silenced it. He glanced at the playlist as he did. "Are you serious, man?" he giggled. "The only two artists your mum had on here were David Bowie and Iron Maiden?" "The only two artists worth listening to," Vivian said proudly. Whatever you say, Cobweb." Token snorted as he handed back the phone and climbed up onto his bunk. Vivian smiled. "My dad loved Maiden, but I was only allowed to listen to it when Mum wasn't around. She called it angry music, and I guess she was right." He chuckled. "Mum was a Bowie girl through and through, so I grew up listening to both." Token nodded his approval, but his face grew serious. He pointed at the phone. "You best be careful with that," he said with a frown. "Don't let the warden see it." "What do you mean?" "I mean they take away the phones of any kids who'd be lucky enough to bring one." Vivian nodded. "Francis said it had something to do with character building. More like character breaking," Token growled. "No calls, no internet, total blackout. Wouldn't want us knowing there'd be a world out there. Me? I haven't seen a phone since I got here." Vivian bent down and located a power socket behind the head of his bed. He plugged in his phone charger, then ran the cable along the wall and up the leg of the bed, making sure it wasn't visible from the doorway. He then pulled a roll of thick, black electrical tape out of his duffel and concealed the cable beneath a layer of tape. The shadows beneath the bed hid the tape from view. Standing, he walked to the door, checked his work, then gave a satisfied nod. "What about yours?" he said. "They took yours too?" Token looked sullen. "Never had one." The answer hung in the air while Vivian connected his phone to the cable and tucked it under his pillow. "Well, now you do," he said finally. "Use mine whenever you want. Call it a thanks for letting me stay with you." "Thank Lewis," Token said with an appreciative smile. He sat on his mattress, changing into tracksuit, pants, and a hoodie. "It used to be him and me in here, but we figured if you bunk with Tank, only one of you would be living to see the morning." Vivian smirked and rolled his bat under the lower bunk. He then crawled onto his own mattress. Hanging his legs over the edge of the metal frame of the bed, he stared across the shoebox space of their room. The far wall was only a few feet away and clumsily bisected a window that looked out over the western grounds of Murkwater Estate. "So these were the crude renovations that Gorgon was talking about," he said, sneering at the messy-looking brickwork. "They made smaller rooms out of bigger ones by walling up in between. No plaster, no paint, just bricks. No checks too small for us delinquents, am I right?" Token smiled down at him, showing big yellow teeth. "It's slack," Vivian sneered. "How do they get away with something like that?" "Because nobody comes upstairs and sees it," Token shrugged. "Your lady friend wasn't invited, was she?" Vivian remembered the Dean attempting to keep Francis in her car at their first meeting and shook his head. "No, exactly," Token said. "She be seeing what Gorgon wanted her to see. That's how it usually is when Murkwater has visitors. They see the big old house, the fancy rooms on the ground floor, and they go away thinking everything be peachy here." "Yeah, well, I might have to mention that when I see her next," Vivian grumbled and rubbed his jaw. "That and other things." "She a real pretty lady, that one," Token said. Vivian grunted in response, feeling his cheeks grow warm. With an electric fizzing sound above them, the room suddenly vanished into darkness. Confused, Vivian lurched upward and banged the top of his head against the metal struts of Token's bunk. A bolt of pain fired into the top of his skull like lightning striking a tree. He cursed and clutched his scalp, trying to smother the fire blooming through his head. "Must be 9 o'clock." Token's voice came to him out of the darkness below. "Lights out." "Are you kidding me?" Vivian sank back down, scalp singing in pain. He glanced about, trying to make out his surroundings. "They turned the lights out on you?" "Same time every night." Vivian heard Token unzipping his sleeping bag, followed by the creaking of springs as the dark boy climbed into it. "Seriously?" he muttered. "Anyone told them this isn't a prison?" "Yeah, I wouldn't be so sure about that," Token yawned. "Come on, man, let's get some shut-eye." "But it's still early." "Best to try," Token said. "We get up at 6. Vivian stayed where he was, hand pressed against his throbbing head. He wasn't feeling tired at all. Too much had happened that day, and his mind was crawling with questions. The room was quiet for a spell before Token's voice poked out of the stillness. "Truth for a truth?" "Sure." Vivian would have been happy to swap 1,000 truths at that point. Token didn't ask straight away, and when Vivian heard the question, he understood why. "What happened, man?" Vivian knew what his new friend meant, and been expecting the question sooner or later. He tried to separate himself from thoughts of his parents as he answered. "Car crash," he said. "It's just me now." "Sorry, man," Token said, sounding sincere but not surprised. "I guess it don't help much my saying that you ain't the only one of those in here." Vivian didn't answer. "And just saying," Token continued. "It pays to remember that. Helps you stop feeling sorry for yourself." The mattress above Vivian squeaked and creaked. "What about the hair?" Vivian's fingers absently brushed at his fringe. "Nurse said it was from shock," he said. "Apparently it happens sometimes. She said it might all go white, but it didn't. Just the fringe." "Good thing," Token said with a hint of a chuckle. "Might have been calling you Snowflake rather than Cobweb." Vivian returned the chuckle. "What about you?" he said. "What brings you to the house that time forgot?" "It's better for me," Token said. "My mum is still around." "Yeah?" Vivian was surprised by this. "Then what are you and Cyan doing here?" Token's voice lost its humor. "Let's just say it'd be hard for her to take care of us right now. She was real sick for a time." "Oh," Vivian said, wondering if Token had actually meant sick or something else. "Well, what about your dad?" Now Token was silent long enough for Vivian to think that he might have abandoned the conversation altogether. Then the answer came in a low voice. "He ain't around no more, Cobweb." Vivian caught the uncomfortable tone and quickly pushed for a different topic. "How long have you been here?" 3 Christmases, Vivian sniggered. "Don't you mean years?" "I mean Christmases," Token maintained. "It's easier to count those in here." "Okay, so Christmases. Christmas is good in here, yeah?" "It sucks," came the reply, "but at least we get to decorate a tree." Vivian whistled. 3 Christmases, huh? "So you'll be going back to her soon then?" "Who?" Token sounded confused. "Your mum." Vivian helped him along. "After 3 Christmases, she's bound to be feeling better, yeah?" "Oh, sure." Token's tone lightened. Now there was a smile in it. "I don't worry about it too much. I'm thinking we'll be getting out of here real soon." Vivian smiled to himself. He didn't know if Token believed that, but it didn't really matter, did it? When it came down to it, the dark boy had something he did not. Token had hope. Vivian swung his legs back and forth, pleased with the progress he had made. In one day he had joined a new gang, made a new friend, and 2 new enemies. The pain in his jaw had faded to a cold ache that, while not pleasant, was manageable, and the whack on his skull that he had given himself shortly before had seeded a decent lump, but not much else. On the whole, things were looking up. He slid his feet into his sleeping bag and wriggled it up around him. Satisfied with that, he reached down and pulled the bed cover up to his chin. Then he lay back in the dark, waiting for sleep to take him.